we're kind of going to get into some mock drafts for next year, and something to think about when we looked back in last year's mocks a year ago, when the 2023 mocks first started coming out, and we started just noticing some odd things happening, right? And we were very quick to call those out. We felt very strongly about it. It's going to be fun. We're going to go through kind of some mock drafts and just, see if anything so I think sometimes, NFL scouts maybe just get like a little too smart for themselves. And I think the season, the football games kind of put that into perspective sometimes. So this will be fun.
I also think that there's something that can be learned occasionally from these for the college football season that's about to happen. Like, who do NFL people think is better than maybe we realize? Or, maybe they're stupid, but also maybe they have a point on some of these guys that we haven't really noticed or whatever. And who might be better than we expect this year, basically.
I think potential, like these mock drafts, like it may not be realized. Like certain guys aren't going to realize their potential, but it's a possibility, and if all the cards fall right for this certain team, these guys could be first rounders, you know what I'm saying? And then they could be dangerous this year. So we're looking at potential.
Yeah. So today we're going to kind of go through a consensus big board. So this is drawing from a bunch of different mock drafts that have come out for the 2024 draft and some big boards and all of that just kind of thrown together and just sort of go through what is the consensus right now. I have not spent much time looking at this. We both kind of wanted to, it's not our initial reaction because we've peeked at it, but it kind of right next to that. Right. Sort of an initial reaction to what we're looking at. So just starting at the top, number one, actually, Marvin Harrison Jr. I assume that's probably because of some big boards saying that he's probably the best player in the draft, even though we all think Caleb Williams will go number one, who is the number two guy on the big board. And then I'll just go ahead and say number three is Drake May. I think those are kind of the three obvious guys at the top.
Right.
You agree with those? Like, how would you order those two quarterbacks right now? Like, do you feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. might actually be the best player in the draft? Or, like, what do you kind of expect? Does that top three make sense to you?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think Caleb Williams and Drake May, right now, they're in the top three, and they deserve to be. And I think I fully expect a quarterback to be going number one in next year's draft, just like they almost always do. And probably another quarterback to go 2 or 3, like kind of just like they always do anymore. Like it's just standard at this point. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is a little, I don't know. That's a little intriguing. Is he that much different than Jackson Smith and Jigba was a year ago, coming off of a huge bowl game where he played very, very well? And everyone kind of thought the sky was the limit, but then was it with Smith and Jigba, it was a lot of injuries, and like he kind of declared out. I don't know. It feels like we're overhyping him. It does. He's a great player. He's a fantastic player. He's a little overhyped, just a bit. I think there will definitely be other receivers by the end of next year that have at least caught up to him, because right now it's viewed like there's a large gulf between him and the next best receiver. I think there's going to be other receivers that will play their way up into Harrison Jr. territory.
Here's something for you. Here's the difference between him and Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's 6'4", and we saw his dad play. I grew up a Colts fan. His dad was actually one of my favorite players, and just like one of the most incredible route runners the NFL has seen, and fast. But really, it was the hands and the route running. And his son has all that, but he's 4 inches taller too. I think it makes sense to me. I don't actually think he's overrated. I think I would. Now, if I was drafting next year in the draft, I'm pretty sure I would take the quarterbacks first. Like, I'd take Caleb Williams and Drake May just because of the positional value. But after that, I mean, and if there's no other quarterbacks that are clearly elevated from what we're looking at right now, like Marvin Harrison Jr. to me feels like the next guy. Like, that makes complete sense to me.
So there's another name that I think we may even talk about later. Troy Franklin, the receiver out of Oregon.
Yeah.
I think that by the end of next year, so Bo Nix comes back, right? And that they'll have another year together. I expect a big year from Troy Franklin. He was great last year. I think he will play his way up into first round territory. And I know, I agree with you. Marvin Harrison is the best receiver right now. Like, I don't know. I think there's a difference between being a really good freshman and a really good sophomore to being a really good junior when guys you're projected to go in the first round, you're getting nitpicked. The other teams are just taking you away, just double covering you, like allowing anyone else to beat you. I don't know. I think it becomes harder for certain guys, and I think it's harder for receivers in particular when you can kind of get schemed out. Like they can kind of scheme you away. Like, we're just not going to let you throw the ball to that guy. Like, someone else is going to have to beat us. Yeah, and I think that's what'll happen to Harrison Jr. Like, I don't think he'll have as big of a statistical year again. Like, he's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. He's wide receiver 1 and deserves to be. I just think, yeah, I think it's going to be harder. I think that like Ohio State's other receivers, like Emeka Buka, and they've got some great ones. Julian Fleming's just sitting there, like former number 1 receiver in his class. I think like they may take some of that production up. I think like it'll kind of get spread out a little bit.
That makes sense. Yeah. Ibuka, by the way, is the wide receiver 2 right now in the early mocks. You mentioned Troy Franklin. Good call on that one. He's wide receiver 5 right now. I really like the top 5. It's the 2 Ohio State guys, Rome Odunze from Washington, Xavier Worthy from Texas, who is just like a burner freak. I still don't feel like he's reached his potential. Troy Franklin, you could say the same thing about at Oregon.
Yeah.
At 6, you got Johnny Wilson, the receiver from Florida State, which that to me feels like maybe next year's the TCU receiver. I already forgot his name.
Quentin Johnston.
Johnston. Tall guy who's lanky and runs fast, but maybe has a few too many drops, like more than you would like.
Sure.
I don't like him near as much as the guys ahead of him personally.
Sure.
Yeah, let's continue going down this list after those top 3. Number 4, you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner from Alabama. Number 5, Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. That would be the highest drafted tight end in I don't know how long.
Well, Kyle Pitts was 4.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, you're right. It is rarefied air, and I think like Bowers, and obviously I'm a Georgia fan. I watch every single game that he plays, but he's the most like there's a large gulf between Bowers and tight end 2. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that he won't get drafted as high as some of these other guys. Tight ends just don't go that high. You know what I mean? Like it's just the value is not really there. And you often see tight ends fall. Like I think Bowers might end up going more like 10. It's simply just because people are going to feel like it's too high to take a tight end. And I kind of get that. Like I do. It's maybe a little unfortunate for him, but yeah, I think he deserves to be up in a big board or just like the best available. Brock Bowers is absolutely in the top 5.
I do think that he will be helped by being seen as clearly the number 1 tight end, where this year a lot of the tight ends fell because there was a nice top 6 or so. Like there was a bunch of good tight ends in this year's draft, so that might help him a little bit. Continuing on, Jared Verse and Dallas Turner from Florida State and Alabama, both edge players, kind of going next. Verse was supposed to be a first rounder this year, but decided to go back to Florida State for another year. Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt, the next 2 players, 2 tackles, the top 2 offensive linemen on the board, Penn State and Notre Dame, respectively. And then rounding out the top 10 is JT Tuimoloau, the defensive lineman from Ohio State. Just kind of looking at that top 10, any that really don't make any sense to you or head scratchers for you? Or do you kind of feel like it makes sense?
No, I mean, I think they kind of got this right. Like I agree with a lot of this. McKinstry, you could argue a little back and forth. Like he has the lowest floor, in my opinion, of all these guys.
Sure.
Like with all the rest of them, we kind of know like Caleb Williams is going to have a good year. Marvin Harrison will have a good year. Brock Bowers, Dallas Turner. McKinstry is like, it could be great. It really could. And it could also it could be a fairly low floor. Yeah, the offensive tackles you mentioned, Alt and Fashanu, I mean, just really good players. Like, I don't know if they'll go that high. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's kind of like a light, I don't know. There's not the elite offensive tackles that we talk about a year or 2 in advance. Like sometimes there is. These guys, I think there's going to be an offensive tackle that will end up playing their way up. And yeah, I don't feel great about the tackles. I guess you've watched a bit of Joe Alt. Is he like, what is he? Is it just like really long? Like, is that the
He's
draw with him?
he's actually a really interesting player. He was a tight end most of his high school career. Was a 3-star recruit who I think his senior year grew to like 6'7" and put on like 50 pounds. And
Yeah.
thankfully Notre Dame was on him. His dad, I guess, was an NFL tackle, so that there was some projection there, like that he could project to growing quite a bit. And as a true freshman, which was Kelly's last year at Notre Dame, they had all those left tackle issues. I don't know if you remember that, but he
Yep.
was like the third one in due to injury, and immediately it was just, oh, well, we just don't have to pay attention to left tackle anymore. And that was as a true
Right.
freshman. Then last year as a sophomore, he was first team All American, and it was, yeah, I guess maybe the best thing I can say about a tackle is that you just never notice them because they're never letting anything happen, and that's what Joe Alt is. Like, I really think that the team that drafts him just plug him in a left tackle for 10 years and forget about it. Like, you're fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Like, I really do think he's about as good as I've seen at Notre Dame. They have had a lot of really good left tackles. Ronnie Stanley, Mike McGlinchey, not Quentin Nelson. He was a guard, but Zach Martin was a left tackle at Notre Dame as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Ald is probably just as good as any of them.
Okay.
Very athletic, like quick feet. Yeah. I can't speak to Fashanu really of Penn State just because I don't pay attention to offensive linemen at places like Penn State just all that much, just because
Right.
I can be a little bit too much of a ball watcher when I watch football. The reason I know about Alt is obviously because I'm a Notre Dame fan and I watch all of their games. But yeah, I hear good things about him. To me, this top 10, like kind of like you said, like there's nothing just resoundingly terrible about it. JTT, the Ohio State defensive lineman, he's had some really good games. I don't know that we've seen him be as consistently dominant as some of the other Ohio State defensive linemen we've seen in the last 10 years, but
Sure.
you've seen kind of the ceiling. Like he has really flashed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's. I don't know that I would view this top 10 after the top three. To me, it feels like there's a pretty clear drop off after the top three.
I agree. I think that, I mean, it's consensus in almost every single mock. It's Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, and Drake May in some particular order.
Right.
And then it's kind of like, well, we think it's going to, like, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, edge rushers go high, right? Like,
Yeah.
we might as well throw them up there. We'll include Fashanu and Alt because, I mean, tackles go up there, right?
Mhm.
Like, we just start kind of throwing guys in there that we think may go. JTT, I think he could go top five. Like,
Yeah, it could.
I'm actually surprised he's that low. And maybe it's because of, like, the Penn State game. Like, he completely just wrecked the Penn
Yeah.
State game for them. And you're right. Like, there's been, like, moments where he kind of, it's not as consistent. The consistency is not there. They get run over by by Michigan back-to-back years. Like, they're running over, like, his side. Like, so it's like, like, could we have, like, a little bit of that Penn State performance against Michigan? No, but I still think I think he's a lot like Jalen Carter. Like, I think Vumaloau he'd have a little bit of just that absolute game wrecking ability. He's maybe a little smaller than Carter, but yeah, like, just a really good interior defensive lineman. Um, I didn't have any other real issues though.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jared Verse, I don't know as much about him. I'd feel better about Dallas Turner if I was taking an edge today. Like, I think Dallas Turner may be a little bit better edge, but that's mainly because I don't know much about Verse. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just would like to see maybe just another year.
Yeah, it's not like last year where we saw some, well, mostly Will Levis, but yeah, we really had an issue with some of the mock drafts last year, and this year
Hey,
it seems like it's a little better.
how surprised are you that we don't have Joe Milton in this top 10?
Hey,
Like,
I love it.
Joe Milton is everything that these mock guys love. Like, he's got a huge arm and he threw an orange 125 yards. And, like, how is he not here? I'm just very surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to get to some other quarterbacks, which will be an interesting conversation. But 11, Emeka Ibuka, mentioned him already as wide receiver 2. 12 is Michael Hall, another defensive lineman from Ohio State. Didn't really know about him a lot before last year, and then that opener against Notre Dame, he basically was the one who
Yeah.
won that game for Ohio State's defense. the Notre Dame running game just never got going, and it was mostly because of Michael Hall. I think we expected JTT, Jack Sawyer, some of those other guys to be the big
Sure.
names, and it was Michael Hall that was really doing the damage. The next guy, another interior lineman, Mason Smith, defensive lineman from LSU, who missed all of last year due to injury. I think he got hurt in the opener against Florida
He
State.
did.
And was widely considered to be their best player until that happened. And they still went and won the West. So I guess I would view him as a guy who could potentially be higher.
I 100% agree. I think Mason Smith and Tuimoloau are top 10 talents for sure. And I honestly think that they'll, by the end of next year, I think you'll see them up there. I think those will be two guys that will climb. Given, Mason Smith would have been that guy already, but he got hurt and missed the whole year. Like he got hurt I think he was against Florida State in the opener, didn't play at all. So we kind of forget, but I think he'll be a stud for LSU. I think that's, you like kind of combine him with Harold Perkins on the edge. That's a really good core of a defensive line right there.
Next is J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle from Alabama. Wide receiver Rome Odunze from Washington. We've mentioned him a little bit with the receivers. Jerzon Newton, a defensive lineman from Illinois. Man, what a great defense they had this last year. And just another guy. And not going to lie, like I don't know much about any of their individual defensive players. Devon Witherspoon was the top cornerback drafted this last year, and they had several others go as well. Yet another guy that people are high on. 17 is Michael Penix Jr., and this is finally quarterback 3. To me, the quarterback board after the top 2, there's just tons of potential everywhere. Yeah. But I don't know. Like this next year will tell us what order they're going to go. Because to me, I don't know that I have a strong feel after the top 2 on who should go next. Do you like Penix there at 17?
Oh, do you like Penix there at 17? Like, okay, I'm just going to – he played for Indiana, right? You've seen him a lot. He's got a live arm. I've watched him play quite a bit. He's got a fantastic arm. It's a lot of concern though, right? That he's not been consistent. Like we can just say that it hasn't always been the same performance from him. And like I don't know. Like, is that what we're looking for? Is he kind of the, you don't want to say Anthony Richardson, but kind of the project, the guy with the huge arm that we're going to work on? Or because I've heard some people like already come out and say that he can make every throw that you want, but they question some of his decision making. I don't know, a lot of stuff that's done in college is like predetermined reads and stuff anyway. But I do think another year with Kalen DeBoer at Washington is only a good thing for him. Like I think, I expect him to have a great year. I expect Washington to be a tough out because of that. So like I think he'll put up good numbers. Yeah, I don't know. I guess this feels about right. I was going to ask you like how you felt about him.
I like him. I don't know how much I like him. Last year, I did think he actually was quite a bit more consistent than we were used to seeing from him.
Yeah.
31 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, completed 65% of his passes. And I like guys like this. Once you get past the very elite of the elite, like the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks in each draft, and some drafts have none. The very elite guys, you know what I'm talking about. But then once you get past that, I like guys that have talent, but have also played a lot. And he's already played a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's about to play another full season with some really good receivers, a really good coach. And to me, I wouldn't be shocked if we do see him go in the first round next year, just because he's been, I think at that point, he'll have yet another really productive year, and he's going to have a lot of reps under his belt. Yeah. He's not going to be that quarterback that comes in and looks overwhelmed.
And I think like you mentioned the reps. How old is he? Like, do we have any idea? Because he's been around for a bit, and we've seen quarterbacks get kind of dinged this past year for being too old, like Hendon Hooker, Stetson Bennett. Like we're in the year, like the COVID year is applying still. So these guys, they can be a year older before they come out. Like they can, you'll get 25-year-olds in the draft.
Today is his 23rd birthday.
Okay, so he'll still be 23 when he gets drafted then, like just almost 24. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's not too bad. Like it's not enough to get dinged for, I don't think. Like that's the same age that Will Levis was. We were fine with that. So yeah, no, I think I like it. the thing I love about it is that he gets to be in that system. Like I kind of keep
Yes.
coming back to that. It's working for him. Like it works. And yeah, the Pac-12 is tough. There's a lot of really good teams. And I think Washington is going to like they're going to be in the mix. They're going to win some games, like some impressive games. Like
Mhm.
they could easily beat Oregon again. Washington has it all out in front of them. They won a lot of games last year and didn't get anyone drafted. I don't think they got a single player drafted. So that means that like there's a lot of talent coming back. Like you're a good football
Yes.
team and everyone's still there. So yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
So Xavier Worthy, the receiver from Texas, is next on our list. Braylon Trice, you were talking about Washington talent, edge player for Washington who's played very well. Jeremiah Trotter, linebacker from Clemson. Just they have several linebackers that have a chance to be really good. Remains to be seen how good, but definitely a talented guy whose dad was an NFL player. Denzel Burke, corner from Ohio State. I'll just round out the top 25 here real quick. Quinn Ewers, we have another quarterback, Texas. Kalen King, corner from Penn State. Jack Sawyer, the edge from Ohio State. And then Kingsley Suamataia. I don't know if I said
Nice.
that right, but offensive
Well
tackle
done.
from BYU.
Well
um,
done.
kind of looking at that range there, 18 to 25. What stands out to you?
I think Quinn Ewers going at 22 is
Yeah.
interesting. This is by no means how it's going to end up next year. Like there's going to be another full year of games that these guys will have to play, and some guys are going to fall, and some guys are going to go rocketing up. Quinn Ewers is a guy that has the potential, if it works, at Texas. He's got Sark there, who's a great play caller. He's got Xavier Worthy, who you mentioned, great receiver. There's talent there. If it works, if everything clicks for that offense, like Quinn Ewers could be top 5. Like
Oh, yeah.
he has that kind of potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Seeing him there at 22 felt a little low. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I do think that there's obviously a chance that he doesn't play all that well, a little inconsistent like he was last year, and we don't
Yep.
even maybe even see him in the draft next year. Like maybe he has to transfer somewhere else or whatever. But there's also that chance that we're looking at him as a top 3 pick next year, and I wouldn't be shocked by it at all. I do think if you're looking at quarterbacks 3 and 4 here, Penix and Ewers, I wouldn't be shocked if Ewers ends up being the guy, just because I feel like, well, first of all, he's a little younger, and I think he's just more talented. Maybe
Mm,
not significantly so. Penix has a good arm, but Ewers has like the howitzer. um,
yeah,
he
yeah.
was that top recruit in the country coming in, and yeah, I do think that most likely we either see this 22 be way too low, or he's just
Yeah.
not going in the first round at all, basically.
Right. Right. Or he doesn't declare. Like he would
Right.
just be a junior still at this time. Like he could just
Yeah.
stay and not declare. So yeah,
Mhm.
no, I agree. I agree 100%. I that one was he is the outlier though. Like of all the guys, all the other guys here, he's kind of the outlier. I mean, the rest of them are kind of there's a lot of defensive players kind of. You're getting into some edge rushers, linebackers, a corner, but a quarterback this late like in the first round is it's that's a little bit different. Like
Mhm.
usually quarterbacks in the pre-draft process, they usually float to the top. They always do. They
Yeah.
always quarterbacks just kind of climb the ladder there. I think yeah, Ewers could easily go up there. Texas is an interesting team. And I have sworn off Texas. I'm not buying in. Like, show me. I have a strict show me policy with Texas. If you go out, actually beat someone, you go beat Alabama at their place, then I'm on board. But I have to see it first.
Sure.
But I may be slowly buying into Texas, and I know better. That's kind of the problem. I might be buying into Texas this
Mhm.
year.
All right, I'll just round out the first round here. Kalen Bullock, safety from USC. Travion Henderson, running back from Ohio State. Cooper DeJean, safety from Iowa. Andrew Makuba, safety from Clemson. Cooper Beebe, offensive tackle, Kansas State. Javon Bullard, safety, Georgia. And Raheem Sanders, running back, Arkansas. What do you think?
Well, okay, first off, if Ohio State has all these first rounders, like I have so many questions about that. Like that's really interesting. I saw one mock draft that had 9. This was NBC. NBC had a mock draft
Yeah.
that had 9 Ohio State players in the first round.
This consensus is 7, which is quite high.
If I mean, Georgia set the record last year with 5. Like you're blowing out the record if you have 7, and then 9 is almost double the record. I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand how they lose a game if they have that much NFL first round talent. I really don't. That's crazy. Um, Other than that, I don't know. Like another Iowa defensive player. We've seen them get drafted. I mean, they had what, 2 this past year that were first rounders. So that feels, yeah, that's not abnormal. Javon Bullard, safety of Georgia. Probably about right. I think I do feel like there's guys below it that I do feel should be higher.
Yeah.
And some of these guys do need to drop. Like I think Barrett Carter's a better linebacker than Jeremiah Trotter, or at least I think that he will be. Like I think that he will be at the end of next year. Yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be risers and some guys that fall out. I think Jack Sawyer may fall out, like the edge from Ohio State. I didn't think he was that good this year. I didn't really see him reckoning games. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that's not too harsh. I don't know. Is that harsh?
No, I mean, when you're looking kind of at the back end of the first round, you see a bunch of guys who you feel like are good players, but you're not sure if they're like just freaks. And it seems like there's always going to be freaks that rise over the course of the next season. Troy Franklin is just outside that list. Wouldn't be shocked if he climbed into it. Rocket Sanders, I really like him as a running back at Arkansas. I don't know if I see him as a first round pick. Like, to me, he feels like maybe more of a just kind of the speed back. Like, he needs to be one of your 2 or 3 running backs. Whereas if you're taking a running back in the first round, it feels like he's kind of got to be a featured guy. I don't know. That's whatever. Going down the list, Johnny Wilson's not far away. I mentioned him already. I do think he's going to be that guy that maybe he's getting a lot of first round love, and we're all like, you dropped a lot of balls. To me, I kind of view him that way. Blake Corum and Braylon Allen, a couple good Big Ten running backs, kind of in that next group there. Bo Nix is QB5, second round. Yeah, that could be interesting.
Okay, I just have one quick little point on Oregon. Bo Nix was a Heisman contender through like week 7 or 8 of last year. Heisman contender. Troy Franklin's still there. I know you're having to replace offensive coordinator, so I do understand that. But Oregon and Washington are going to have really good offenses. Again, like they're going to have really, really good offenses, and they're going to put up great numbers and win a lot of games. I don't know. Like I think a quarterback that has that much experience and is putting up big numbers, I feel like he rises. Like I feel like Bo Nix is a guy. I know it sounds kind of funny. I think he could actually be a guy that goes up. I think quarterbacks, kind of tend to do that. I think Bo Nix could.
So tell me, I have this little theory that I'm not even sure I believe it, but you tell me what you feel about it. So just kind of looking at this list, if I look down, not just the first round, but down, through the top 100 or so, it kind of stands out to me. I think I see more Ohio State. You sort of mentioned them before. Like I see more Ohio State than I would expect to see. I see a little more Penn State maybe than I would expect to see. I definitely see more Washington than I would expect to see.
Yeah.
Does that mean that maybe those throw in Miami too? Once you get past the first round, especially, you see a lot of second rounders from Miami. Is it possible that those teams might be slightly undervalued going into next year if they have all these supposedly really good players?
I think Washington is. I agree with you there. I think Washington is for sure undervalued. Can we look up win total, like the preseason win total? Like I know not all of them are out yet, but with a lot of teams you can already pull stuff up. I know Ohio State's at 10.5, which is fairly normal. I think Alabama is also the same, and I think Michigan's actually also at 10.5, which is I mean that's a good number. I think you're valued about right. I think Washington, I agree with you, undervalued. What was the other team that you had mentioned? One more team? Miami.
Yeah.
Mentioned Miami, and they have talent. Okay, but that could also be a train wreck.
Oh,
because they brought in a great class. I think they had a top 10 recruiting class. Miami is replacing coordinators again.
Hmm.
I don't know. That could
I
be a
think
train.
that's the one that I believe the least for sure. Like that to me
Okay.
feels like a trap. um,
What's their? I'm going to look up their their number really quick. Miami could. It went so horribly wrong.
so it
Um.
doesn't look like their numbers on FanDuel.
Okay, they're not
Um,
out yet.
they might be somewhere. I don't know.
I'm seeing somewhere that they're projected around 8. Um.
Okay.
Which that's on I think it's on one of the Miami website.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably about right. They're definitely going to have more talent than a lot of teams that they'll go up against, but they did last year too. So
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
know. I guess you
Yep.
remember when Miami played Texas A&M, dude. I was glued into that game.
Yeah,
I was dialed into that game.
that was
By
supposed to
the
be a
way,
really big matchup. Yep.
big. There's some teams that aren't on here that you didn't mention. You did not mention A&M, and you didn't mention Tennessee. And I think that's a little
Hmm.
interesting. Like there was no mention of those guys. That's I don't know. That feels a little light. Like I think A&M, we know they have a lot of talent. Like they've had a lot of great recruiting classes, and we didn't have any of those guys up there. I think that might just be a miss. Like I think A&M has the talent, and I think maybe they're not just being valued yet by mock drafters.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. A&M's top projected player right now is number 55, Bryce Foster.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, anything else kind of looking down through this list that stands out to you before we move on here?
I think the running backs you mentioned, Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, two very heavily used running backs
Hmm.
from the Big Ten, right? And we know that the NFL does not like heavily used running backs. Like
Right,
that's just kind of a fact. Seeing them go, and they're going right around pick 40 is kind of where they're projected now.
right.
Like they're great talents. They're great talents. Really good running backs. I just there's yeah, the NFL they're definitely trending away from running backs right now. Like they want someone that's a pass catcher, that's lightly used, has a lot of hits left on him. I mean, because you're seeing a lot of backs that they draft high flame out after just a couple of years, like Zeke Elliott or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's interesting just to see how the positional value is changing a little bit.
Yeah. Are there any quarterbacks um, that you felt like maybe should have showed up somewhere in these top 2 rounds or so? I'll kind of go down through the list. Shador
Yeah.
Sanders, KJ Jefferson, JJ McCarthy, Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, Tyler Van Dyke, Jalen Daniels, Jaden Daniels, Spencer Rattler, DJ Uyunglele, Devin Leary, Cameron Rising, Cameron Ward, Riley Leonard, Joe Milton, Sam Hartman, Kyle McCord, Jalen Miller. I'll stop. But like
Okay.
um, any of those you feel like could have a shot at maybe being a first round pick next year?
Yeah, like not Jalen Milrow, not him.
No.
Okay, so Jaden Daniels, Spencer Rattler. Two
Yeah.
names, interesting names. Spencer Rattler has all the tools. We've seen it really work for him. And by the way, it was clicking at the end of last year. Like it was really working for
Hmm.
for Rattler at South Carolina. Also for Jaden Daniels, finished the year very strong. JJ McCarthy, I was surprised to see him that low. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't translate well. I think that the way the games end up in like say KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, say they go and they surprise some people. They beat LSU and they beat Alabama. They lose a couple of games, finish 9-3. He has a good year. Like there's no way he's not in the first round. Like he just is
Yeah.
because of the teams that he beat and because of the way the narrative shifts. I think teams, yeah, I don't know. Like a quarterback of a really good team does get a little extra benefit of the doubt. He really does. And
Hmm.
so I think a lot of it will come down to games this fall. Like who wins? Does Ohio State win or does Michigan win? If Michigan wins again, then McCarthy is going to go higher than the third round. Like he's going to go in the first round probably. Yeah, KJ Jefferson already kind of laid that out. If Jaden Daniels goes to Alabama and beats them again, like he could easily go up. He really could. He has a lot of talent. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think with quarterbacks in particular, so much depends on did you win? Like did you go win the game? And
Hmm.
then your stock rises after that.
Yeah, I look at some of these guys that have like a lot of production, but don't necessarily look like your typical 6'5", NFL quarterback. Jordan Travis,
Yeah.
um, Devin Leary, Sam Hartman. And then you kind of look at the other end of the spectrum where you have guys who have all the tools, and you're wondering if maybe they have a really big year and they could bust into the first round just because of they kind of finally have the production to go with all the tools. Tyler Van Dyke would be a guy like that. Michael Pratt, maybe.
Yeah.
DJ Uyunglele, like
Yeah.
Joe Milton. Who knows about that one? But yeah, a lot of guys to keep an eye on for sure.
Well, okay, like so if Milton, say Joe Milton pops off and Tennessee has a very similar year to what they did last year, and
Mm-hmm.
Milton is throwing the ball 70 yards down the field and looks great. Are you going to stand there and tell me that he's not going to just catapult up these rankings? Like
Yeah.
I think they can't help themselves. So yeah, like does that make him necessarily a better quarterback? Not really, like not necessarily, but yeah, he was able to throw the ball really far and they won games. And so therefore he will jump.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it maybe it's not even really fair that the quarterbacks are often nitpicked on whether or not they won or lost a game. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is fair. Maybe it's not. I haven't completely decided. Jordan Travis was an interesting name you brought up, the guy
Mm-hmm.
from Florida State. I don't know how him or even Shador Sanders, like, how do they translate? Like, how, like, they're mocking fairly high. Like, how are these guys translating? How do they see these guys as top, 60
Yeah.
prospects right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think on Jordan Travis, I'm 100% convinced that he's a great college quarterback. Like, if we
Yeah.
were just doing a draft for who you want this year in college, he would probably go top 5 or 6. Like, he would be right up there.
Yeah.
As far as the NFL goes, like, yeah, I have no idea. That's one of those that I don't know that I have any strong opinions.